It was supposed to be a regular morning at the airport, people rushing to catch flights, grabbing coffee, rolling luggage across polished floors. But for Marcus, a well-dressed black businessman on his way to an important international conference, everything came to a halt at the boarding gate. As he handed over his first-class ticket, the gate agent barely looked at it before shaking her head. "Sir, I'm afraid we can't let you board." No clear reason, no explanation, just a cold stare and an awkward silence as other passengers looked on, some whispering, others pretending not to notice. Confused and growing more frustrated by the second, Marcus calmly asked for a supervisor. The response? A shrug and a security officer stepping in as if he were a threat. It wasn't just about a missed flight anymore. It was about dignity, respect, being seen. What the staff didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any passenger. He had connections. And when he pulled out his phone and made one call, everything changed. Who did he call? What happened next made every witness rethink what they just saw. The gate agents who looked down on him, they soon realized they had made a massive mistake, one that would go far beyond just one denied boarding. Stick around, because what happens next will not only shock you but remind you that sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most power. Marcus stood quietly by the gate, phone pressed to his ear, his voice calm but firm. The people around him couldn't hear what he was saying, but something about his tone made even the security guard shift uncomfortably. The gate agent, who moments ago looked so sure of herself, started glancing toward her colleagues, sensing that something wasn't right. Just 30 minutes ago Marcus had breezed through check-in. His ticket was valid, his ID matched, and his luggage had already been taken. He'd flown this airline dozens of times before, always in first class, always without issue. But today felt different. The gate agent barely looked at his ticket before asking him to step aside. No reason, no apology, just a dismissive wave of the hand. Other passengers began whispering, a few pulling out their phones. Some were uncomfortable, others were just curious. But none of them really knew Marcus, or the kind of weight his name carried. He wasn't a celebrity. He didn't flaunt wealth or demand special treatment. He believed in respect, professionalism, and earning his place. That's why what happened today hit differently, and while the airport staff brushed him off like he was nobody, the call Marcus made was already setting things in motion. Behind the scenes, alerts were lighting up, emails were being sent. A senior executive at the airline, someone very high up, was already on the move, because Marcus wasn't just another passenger. He was someone this airline couldn't afford to disrespect. As Marcus waited silently by the gate, airport staff whispered among themselves, clearly unsure of how to proceed. The gate agent who denied him entry kept glancing toward the phone in her hand, checking it nervously as if she expected a message that hadn't come yet. What she didn't realize was that her decision had already made its way up the chain faster than she could imagine. At the same time, in a private lounge, just a few gates away, a regional director from the airline was sipping coffee when her phone lit up with a red flag notification. It wasn't just a passenger complaint, it was a direct call from the executive board. The message was brief but clear. Handle this now. Priority status. Meanwhile, back at the gate, a young intern working for the airport operations team quietly observed everything from behind the counter. She had recognized Marcus the moment he walked up. He was featured in a Forbes article just last month for closing one of the biggest tech mergers of the year. She wanted to speak up, but she was new and didn't want to step on toes. Still, something about the way he was treated didn't sit right. Passengers were growing restless. A few were now openly recording the scene. One woman, a lawyer from Atlanta, walked up and politely asked why Marcus was being held back. The agent dismissed her too, which only added fuel to the fire. No one knew it yet, but what started as one gate agent's decision was about to become a viral storm. Tension at the gate was rising fast. Passengers who had once ignored the situation were now asking questions. Phones were out, recording every word, every look. The young intern finally slipped away, tapping nervously on her phone as she sent a message to her supervisor. She knew this wasn't just a boarding issue anymore. This was a public relations disaster unfolding in real time. Marcus stayed calm, but the pressure around him was thick. More security officers appeared, but none approached him directly. They were watching, waiting, unsure of what they were even there for. Across the terminal, the regional director was already walking briskly toward the gate, heels clicking across the floor, phone still in hand. Her expression was tight. She'd seen Marcus's name before, and she knew the airline couldn't afford another scandal, not in the middle of contract negotiations, not with the media already watching the industry closely for discrimination. Lawsuits. The lawyer from Atlanta was now asking for a formal explanation, demanding that the gate agent clarified the reason for the delay. This man has a valid first-class ticket. Why is he the only one not boarding? Her voice was clear, confident, and starting to draw even more attention. The gate agent stumbled over her words, eyes darting between the growing crowd and the approaching director. She didn't expect backup to arrive this quickly, and she definitely didn't expect this level of fallout. Marcus watched it all unfold. He hadn't raised his voice once, but the entire terminal was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happened next, just as the regional director stepped up to the gate, ready to take control of the spiraling situation. Another voice cut through the tension, a firm, authoritative voice coming from behind the crowd. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" Everyone turned. A tall man in a navy blue suit approached, flashing a badge that made the security team immediately step aside. He wasn't airport staff. He was from Federal Transportation Oversight, and he'd received an anonymous tip about a possible discriminatory incident involving a black passenger being denied first-class boarding without cause. The gate agent's face went pale. This was no longer just an awkward misunderstanding. It was now a potential federal investigation, and it was all happening in front of dozens of witnesses and rolling cameras. The agent tried to explain herself, but her voice cracked, and her words fell apart mid-sentence. The federal officer turned to Marcus. "Sir, would you like to share your version of events?" Before Marcus could speak, another phone rang. This time, it was the director's. She answered quickly, listened in silence, then looked straight at the gate agent. Her eyes narrowed. "You denied boarding to someone flagged as VIP priority black status. Do you realize what that means?" The gate agent blinked, confused. But Marcus knew exactly what it meant. That status wasn't just about loyalty points, it was internal code for high-level partners, stakeholders, and government-connected individuals. And now, the airline was caught in a storm it could no longer control. The gate area had gone silent. All eyes were on Marcus as he stepped forward, finally speaking with calm but undeniable authority. "I didn't ask for special treatment. I asked for basic respect," he said, his voice steady. "And instead, I was profiled, dismissed, and treated like I didn't belong even with a valid first-class ticket." The federal officer nodded and turned to the director. "This situation needs immediate internal review. I'll be filing a report today." The director wasted no time. She faced the gate agent and, with a clipped tone, said, "You're relieved of duty for now. We'll be in contact." The agent, stunned, slowly backed away. Cameras captured everything. The passengers, around Marcus, some of whom had stood silently before now, applauded quietly, nodding in support. The director then turned to Marcus. "Mr. Walker, your seat is ready. We'd like to personally escort you to the aircraft." But Marcus hesitated. He looked around, took a breath, and said, "I appreciate that, but I'm not flying today. I'll take my business elsewhere." "So will a few partners." She blinked. "Partners?" He smiled slightly. "I co-lead an equity group that was finalizing a multi-million-dollar deal with your airline next week. It's off the table now." That hit like a thunderclap. The director's confident posture cracked. Everyone watching realized this wasn't just a passenger. They had just turned away one of their biggest potential investors. And as Marcus walked out, calm and dignified, a young employee from behind the counter followed him quietly, asking, "Sir, are you hiring?" Marcus turned to the young employee, offering a warm smile. "Send me your resume," he said, handing her a card with his direct email. "People who pay attention and speak up, we need more of that." She nodded, visibly moved, and stepped back as he walked out of the terminal, leaving behind a stunned crowd and a trail of whispered conversations. Within hours, clips from the incident flooded social media. Hashtags like #FlyingWhileBlack, #FirstClassRespect, and #Marcus Walker began trending. News outlets picked up the story, not just for the drama, but for what it represented: another example of subtle discrimination faced by black travelers, and how calm power can speak louder than confrontation. The airline released a statement the next day, calling the incident a serious lapse in judgment and announcing new bias training for frontline staff. But for Marcus, the big